Hello and welcome to The Pen Habit. My name is Matt Armstrong and I'm glad to have you back for another pen review video. Today's pen is another one of those pens from a brand I had never heard of until one of my wonderful Pen Habit viewers reached out to me and offered to provide it for review purposes, lend it for review purposes, I should clarify. This is from a brand called Xezo, X-E-Z-O, and according to their website, that is in fact how it's pronounced. Now, one of the things about fountain pens is as they have kind of moved from an everyday object to a collector's object to a luxury object, a lot of companies have tried to branch out and include writing instruments in their luxury brand umbrella. In the case of companies like Visconti or Montblanc, what they do is they were pen manufacturers, but they've branched out to include watches and perfumes and leather goods and try to become a luxury lifestyle brand. In the case of Xezo, Xezo is actually a private label luxury brand who uses third parties to manufacture a lot of its goods. So in the case of its watches, those are manufactured in Switzerland. And in the case of the pens, those are manufactured in Germany. This is the Xezo Legionnaire provided by James. So thank you, James, to start off with. And let me show you a little bit about the pen. So it comes in this really unique case, which opens like this. I can honestly say I've never seen a pen case open like that. Open sesame. Anyway, to inside you've got a little guarantee card and some information about the brand, and then the pen itself. I'll get the box out of the way here. Now, this is a metal pen. It is a brass pen with platinum plating and some enameling in here, or lacquering in here to kind of offset the design. So Xezo, most of their pens, most of their products are actually limited edition. So they usually do them in batches of 500. This one happens to be a numbered edition. It's 331 of number 331 of 500. And they mostly sell on their own website. I've never seen their products through regular fountain pen retailers, so I think they're mostly selling a private brand through their own website. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to pricing on this pen. Really interesting design. It's octagonal barrel, and so it's really a nice cross between Art Deco and Art Nouveau. And it just kind of depends on which facet you're on. So half the facets are diamond cut to have this little architectural columnar thing going on there. And then the alternating facets are this kind of Art Nouveau leaf and vine motif that's offset with the black enameling in the background. As I mentioned, it is platinum plated here. And then you've got 18 karat gold plated, and it does say 18 karat gold plated up here. I think that's kind of tacky. You know, you don't need to call attention to the fact that it's gold plated. Gold plated doesn't mean very much. You wouldn't even really want to call attention to the fact that it was 18 karat gold. So that's, I don't particularly care for that little piece right there. Nice, solid clip. It's got a little bit of give to it, but nice solid clip, kind of streamlined design, which I like quite a bit. And then the band down here, now the band isn't part of the cap, it's actually part of the barrel, but it says Xezo Legionnaire, limited edition, number 331 of 500. Then the pen is, you know, exactly the same diameter all the way down, and then you've come to this round finial at the end, which is where the cap posts, and it posts really quite well. Underneath the cap, and it's a pull-top cap, nice and tight, so you don't need to worry about it just falling off. You've got a plastic section with another gold ring here and a kind of a generic looking number 5 sized steel nib. Now the section, compared to the rest of the pen, the section looks just a little bit cheap, I think. That being said, I'm actually glad they used a plastic section over a metal section because I do not like smooth metal sections very much. The nib unit, I don't know where their nibs are made. The feed would lead me to indicate it might be a Yovo nib, but it's hard to say. Kind of number 5 bicolor steel nib with the standard scroll work, and then the Xezo logo engraved right across the face there. It's a cartridge converter pen, so the barrel comes off and you've got a metal tenon here. You can see that the plastic of the section kind of covers a metal core, which meshes with the metal of the barrel. Obviously, as a metal pen, you would not want to use this as an eyedropper. And then you've got a standard international converter, and it takes both long and short standard international cartridges. And I'm going to try to shake the ink up here just a little bit, and I'll talk about that in just a second too. So that is the pen. Design-wise, I like this a lot more than I was expecting to. Oh, really quickly, before I talk about what I like about the design, as I mentioned, it does post. It posts very securely, nice and smooth posting. So the gold-plated finial meshes really nicely with the inner cap, and it's just a nice, smooth posting where you're not going to need to worry about marring the finish on this if you're the kind of person who likes to post your pen. Now, I love Art Deco design. It's one of my favorite American, well, it's not a strictly American design style, but it is one of my favorite design styles. It's this and mid-century modern. I really like those two a lot. So I like the deco aspects of this design. I like the offset leaf and vine facets as well, but not as, I think I would rather just have the pen in all this color. I like that a lot, the vertical lines, nice elongated feel to the pen. It's very hefty, very sturdy feeling, very well manufactured. It's a really nice pen, very beautiful pen. And there's just something about platinum. It's bright and flashy and shiny, and that's just right up my alley. So I like the design of the pen a lot. The nib feels a little cheap for this pen, and I'll talk about that a bit more in terms of price. So let me talk you through some comparisons here, show you some other pens so you can see how this one stacks up. If you're looking for some higher end pens, this would be the Mont Blanc 149. So you can see lengthwise, it's just a touch shorter, but quite a bit narrower. Got the Pelikan M1000 and the Pelikan M800. So all of these quite a bit wider than the Xezo Legionnaire. Then if you're looking at some of the more affordable pens, comparison-wise, you've got the Lamy, let's see if we can't get that, there we go. The Lamy All-Star, a little bit shorter there. The Pilot Metropolitan, and the TWSBI Eco. So comparison-wise, I think probably the closest would be the Eco, although it's just a little bit shorter and a little bit wider, a little bit girthier than the Xezo, but still pretty close in size there. Measurement-wise, you are looking at 142.6 millimeters when it's capped, a really reasonable 128.7 millimeters. So in the hand, in my hand anyway, it fits very nicely, just kind of sits there, very well balanced. The metal in the section does help to balance the heft of the back of the pen. This is not a light pen. And as I mentioned, it does post. The posting, though, is, in my mind, just too long. You can see here, it's too long posted. I don't care for it this way. And that is 163.5 millimeters. The section, in the middle of the section, you're looking at 10.5 millimeters there. So, you know, pretty average. You've got 10.9 millimeters at the widest point of the barrel and 12.1 millimeters at the widest point of the cap. And then, as I mentioned, this is not the lightest pen in the world. This is 32 grams in the hand, uncapped, and 49 grams posted. So if you like super light pens, this is probably not the pen for you. That being said, for an all brass metal, you know, precious metal plated pen, it's not as heavy as it really could be. I found it quite comfortable to write with for long writing sessions, so that's good. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of writing. I'll walk you through the writing, and then I want to talk a little bit about the nib on the pen and the price point. So here we go with our writing sample. This is the Xezo, Xezo Legionnaire, Ionnaire. I almost always misspell that word for some reason. And you have a medium steel nib. I should also point out that this pen only comes in medium. They don't sell fountain pen nibs in any other size, so medium is what you get. We'll talk about a little bit about that. The ink is Mont Blanc Lavender Purple. And we are on a Rhodia dot pad. So here's your quote. Okay, so this pen is actually a nice writer. In terms of wetness, it is not the wettest writer around. It's also not the driest writer around. It is not the smoothest writer around, nor is it the most feedbacky. On the Matt Armstrong feedback scale, where 1 is butter on hot glass and 10 is writing on coarse sandpaper, I'd put this at about a 5. It's got a fair bit of feedback, but not so much that it feels unpleasant, kind of like a soft lead pencil, you know, kind of soft to hard lead pencil, somewhere right around there, maybe a colored pencil. That's kind of the feeling it has. Just a little bit of a little bit of feedback, but not so much that that's unpleasant to write with. It's a stiff steel nib. You can get a little bit of line variation out of it, but what you'll get more than the line variation is a little bit of additional ink flow as you, you know, spread the tines just a touch. Ink flow in general has been a bit inconsistent for me in this pen. So to start off with, I filled it with J. Herbin Orange Indienne ink, which J. Herbin inks generally tend to run on the dry side. And the ink, when I was at work, I took the pen to work with me, and I was stuck in just a deadly dull meeting. And I spent the whole meeting practicing my handwriting. I've got about 4 pages of nothing but letter forms that I've just over and over and over again practiced. This pen did beautifully. It writes a bit on the fine side for a medium, but it did really, really well. When I brought it home later that day and started writing out the handwritten version of this review, that the typed version you can see on penhabit.com, but I always write those out by hand first with the pen being reviewed. I ran into problems with ink starvation. So I was able to write with it for 4 pages, no problem. At work, I couldn't write 2 pages with it at home. And I think the problem was the converter. This converter tends to have some surface tension issues, I have found. And to be real honest, I haven't tried any other converters. I have cleaned this one out, but certain inks tend to get a little bit of surface tension going on. And I think sometimes that can cause issues with ink flow. When the Orange Indienne got troublesome enough for me, I cleaned that out and put the Mont Blanc Lavender Purple in instead. Now, this is one of my favorite purple inks. I really like it a lot. Good ink flow characteristics, but it's not the wettest ink in the world. When I first started writing, I was getting a very, very fine line and a little bit more feedback than normal. And that, I think, had to do with, well, I don't really know what it had to do with, because even with the feed saturated, it wasn't writing great. And then about halfway through the page I was writing, it was like someone turned a faucet and the ink started flowing the way it was supposed to. And I haven't had a problem with it since. So it could have just been that there was a weird air bubble in there or something like that. And I've used it quite a bit since that happened, and I haven't had any ink flow issues. And James, who sent it to me, told me that he's really enjoyed using the pen too. So I'm willing to give a pass on the ink. I think the converter is not great. I think the converter has some issues with it, but that's just a guess. Fortunately, I've got a ton of converters, so I can always, if one doesn't work, I can always swap one out. And if you're into fountain pens, chances are you've got a metric butt ton of these converters sitting around anyway. But if you don't, go order yourself a few Schmidt K5 converters. They're a little on the pricey side. They're about $5 each. Keep them around. They're worth it. They're good converters. And if I have a converter problem, a lot of times I'll switch it over to one of those and it works just fine. But like as I mentioned, really no issues at all with this pen since. The line is a bit on the fine side for a medium, for a Western medium. It's not quite so fine that it would be considered like a Japanese medium. It's kind of in between a Japanese medium and a Western medium. Reverse writing, it will write well and write pretty well. Although it is quite dry, you get a very, very fine line, and it's not scratchy at all. So very, very fine line there. And overall, it's a good writer. Is it an exciting writer? I'm not sure I could say that. And that, I think, let me preface my next remarks by saying I like this pen. I like it a lot. But I don't think it's one I would personally own for a couple of reasons. The first one is this nib. Now, I've got no problem with steel nibs. I like steel nibs. I've got many, many, many of them in my collection. However, in my mind, for a steel nib should be special. If you're going to have a steel nib, it should be special. It should have some characteristic of its own. I don't think this nib has a whole lot of personality to it, to be quite honest. It's just a writer. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But for a pen as expensive as this one is, and it's pretty expensive, it's a bit of a letdown. The nib on this pen is a bit of a letdown for a pen of this price range. I've got kit pens in my collection with the exact same feed, and aside from the engraved logo, an identical looking nib, and the pen cost $50, $60. It's not a great pen. The section is bad, etc., but this nib feels cheap. It feels like they cheaped out on the nib a little bit. Now, this pen retails on the Xezo website for $270. Now, $270 is not cheap for a pen, and it's really not cheap for a pen with kind of a lackluster steel nib. At $270, I can't recommend this pen. I don't think the value is there. That being said, I have found it in several other places for substantially less. So for instance, right now on Overstock.com, this pen lists for $130, or retails for $130. So if you can find the pen for less, I actually think this is a pretty good value. It's a very well-made pen. I think it's very attractive if you like that Deco Art Nouveau, mesh of styles. If you like metal pens and the silver and gold together, which I really do, I think it's a really nice pen. The nib being a bit of a letdown, it's a number 5 size nib, so if this were my pen, I would probably put a Franklin Christoph number 5 nib in here, maybe one of their gold number 5 nibs with a Masayama grind on it or something. Or an Edison number 5 nib, because those are available as well. I would probably put that in here as opposed to this nib, or I would work on this nib. I think if this were my pen, I would open up the tines just a little tiny bit and smooth the living daylights out of it. And then I think it'd be just a really, really superb writer for what I like in my writing style. So at $120, $130, I think this is a great value, and I think it's a really nice pen. At $270, no. At that point, you're competing with much more expensive pens, much nicer pens. I mean, those are, if you're going to do steel nibs in a pen that price range, you're looking at Visconti, Van Gogh, or Salvador Dali. You're looking at Montegrappa, Espressione. You're looking at frankly, nicer pens. I like this pen a lot, but those pens are nicer pens in my opinion. But at the lower price range, I think this is a good price. So that will do it for my review of the Xezo Legionnaire. Again, a huge thank you, James, to allowing me to hold on to this pen for the last couple of months and get to know it before I did a review. If you have questions or comments, as always, you can leave them down in the comment section on YouTube or over on penhabit.com. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/penhabit or on Twitter at twitter.com/penhabit. So, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head over to penhabit.com to check out the photos for this blog post and look in the store for pens I've got for sale or the Pen Habit Currently Inked log. And we will see you here next time on the Pen Habit. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.